Okay, we're going to talk about the case of the apathetic bystander. We'll want to be using as our key vocabulary term the term apathetic, and this is assignment number 2 found in the Law and Order portion of the Summer Enrichment Google Classroom. In this case, a woman named Catherine Kitty Genovese. She was attacked and stabbed to death in 1964 in a highly populated area of Queens, New York. During the half-hour ordeal, 38 people heard this woman's screams for help and watched from their windows. Twice the killer was scared away by the sound of the voices and the realization that they were being watched. However, both times when it became obvious that nobody was actually going to call the police weren't coming, the killer returned to finish off the victim. Rather than give any aid to Kitty, such as calling the police or an ambulance, all 38 of these bystanders chose to pull their shades, draw their blinds, and all ignored Kitty's urgent pleas for help as her life was being taken by the deranged attacker. So what happened here? What is the problem? We obviously want to talk about the psychology of the people involved, and we also want to learn about the law of rule and order as it pertains to a situation like this. So why do you think bystanders took no action to help Kitty? And now I can read text, so I'm throwing that question out to you. Why do you think that? Why do you think that bystanders took no action here? So Matthew, you say the bystander effect. Why don't you explain what that is? Holly, you got it right on. Matthew has given us the answer, and you've given us the description. They believe since there were 38 of them, the other bystanders would do the job. Bystanders thought that someone else would call the cops. They can be afraid of being involved, right? If I get involved now, it could be all sorts of things. Now, how do I remain anonymous? This is a killer. This is somebody trying to kill somebody. What's to stop them from killing me if they become aware that I'm the one who called it in? Matthew gives us directly the theory states that individuals are less likely to offer help to a victim when there are other people present. The greater the number of bystanders, the less likely it is that one of them will help. Emily is saying that she chose to believe that they were scared off because getting involved might mean that they could get hurt as well. Yes, do we know if the murder has some sort of influence amongst the group of bystanders? In this case, my understanding is that nobody knew the killer, just wanted to not be involved. There was an experiment done by a psychologist where he had 3 groups. The first group was 1 person. The second group was 2 or 3 people. And the third group was 6 people. And what the experiment was a conference call, so like a Zoom. And what the experimenter would do is he was the person always on the call. And he would fake having a seizure. And in this hypothetical, when it was just the 1 person, that person would respond the most. That person would respond the most times. But when there was 6 people on the call, they got the least amount of people who would either call police or call the 911 to make sure that the person got some help. So this is a proven case, a proven fact that there is this bystander effect. And so Stefania is saying this is why in an emergency you have to tell someone to call the cops. They are more likely to do it when directed. Yeah, when directed. So we've been talking about the psychology, the psychological issues involved of why somebody may or may not be taking action, mainly focusing on why people in this case didn't. So I want to ask now,
So they have a quickly statement system listening.
I'm sorry, was that a question directed to us or somebody needs to be muted? Looks to me like everybody's muted. Nadine. You are now muted, so so we want to look at this now from the perspective of law and order. And so my question is, the bystanders who didn't call, did they commit a crime by not acting? So it's one thing to have fear, one thing not to want to get involved, one thing to just go about your way. Matthew says no. Anybody support his thought here or disagree with him? Let me see a few more responses. They did. Like any form of complicity, you're letting the killer get away. But Holly, is that a crime? Was there a duty? Amy, you may not like it. You may not be happy with their behavior, may not even be nice. And you may not want them if you're in a situation where you need help to ignore you. But is it a crime? So Demetrio is guilty by association. So did they have and this is the word, a duty. Matthew says the failure to act only constitutes a crime if there exists a special relationship between rescuer and rescuee. A special relationship is where one person is dependent on another. In a way, they helped the murderer. Did they help? In a way, if you start finding yourself saying things like, in a way, you are trying to find a reason to hold somebody guilty. And I wouldn't say in a way they helped. I'd say they did help. They helped by not becoming involved. The killer departed twice and came back. But is there a liability? Are they criminally liable? Did they have a duty to act? They're not being forced in any way by law, so it wasn't a crime. Not really, because they're the common law, no duty rule. The common law, I like that, Matthew. Common law is English when there is not a specific law in place. Much of our law comes from common law. Since Amy pointed out that it is immoral, brings me back to the question from yesterday. It's immoral, but not exactly illegal. Yes, Holly, I want to directly address this point about immorality, but not illegality. I teach some university classes on ethics. And one of the things I teach in that class is the difference between morality and law. And sometimes what is moral is not illegal, and what is immoral might be illegal, or what is moral may be illegal, and the same vice versa. I'm getting confused in expressing all of this, but you understand the point I'm saying is that sometimes immorality is legal. They don't always align. And the point I'm making here is you're performing and engaging in this class already at the level of my university students. You should take tremendous pride, all of you, in the fact that you're processing this information this way. You're really performing like 14th graders. I don't call my college students 14th graders, but we can think of them that way. So Matthew had expressed a little earlier in the thread that it's not a crime because there was no duty to act. A duty to act requires a special relationship. So can anybody think of an example of a special relationship that might require someone to have a duty to act to help? Friendship. Christian, let's talk about that for a second. Friendship. Friendship. It's going to be tough to define what friendship is. what you may think is your friend may be somebody who doesn't think of you as a friend. Maybe they're just hanging out with you because you got an extra candy. You have some extra candy. And so because they're hanging out with you and you're going to go for a swim, even if they are your best friend, do they have a duty to help? It may make it more compellingly moral to help if you're a friend, but friendship is not going to constitute that legal duty, because friendship is very hard to define. But Matthew points out parent to minor child. Do you see a little difference in a relationship there? The parent may not even like their minor child, whereas you may love your friend, you have no duty to help your friend, whereas the parent may not even like their child. This is an annoying kid who's always bothering them, but they are their child. And so, yes, a parent has a formal duty. Parent doesn't get to say, oh, finally, I don't have to feed this kid anymore. Adios. No, you're the parent. Doesn't matter how you feel about your child. You have a duty to help your child. A spouse, that could create that kind of formal relationship, significant other, spouse. Public employee. Julian, what an interesting comment. So, like, how about at a public facility, a lifeguard, right? It's the community pool, and somebody's in the pool drowning. Does the lifeguard have a duty to save the drowning victim? Does that create a duty? They're not a spouse, they're not a friend, they're a stranger. But this is a lifeguard. Lifeguard who's a public employee paid by the city. Does that create that duty? I see 14 new messages. So I'm gonna read through them while you're thinking about that situation of the lifeguard. Can't stop thinking that the case is a little bit of a relation with a child playing in the pool. If there's only one adult close to this, they'll feel the obligation to care this child. Yes. Meanwhile, when there's a group of adults, they will have the security that some of them will take care of the child, and that means it's more likely the kid will drown. Yeah, but that's more likely not at a pool at the ocean where there's a lot of people around. In a pool, it's easy enough to reach in and scoop the kid out, right? Or that kind of thing. But that's more likely in the ocean. A blood brother. No, Matthew, blood brothers. That's funny. It's kind of their job. Yeah. Albert likes your blood brothers. But that only forms a stronger moral duty, not a legal duty. It's in their job description. Yeah. So let's go down the rabbit hole with that hypothetical. And type in your yeses or nos. I want direct yes or no to this question. Let's say the lifeguard, legally ought to help by Wisconsin state legislature. Matthew, is that for blood brothers? Is that some state law you found in Wisconsin for blood brothers? I don't know about the validity of that, but no, not blood brothers. What is it? It's like, what is that? Some sort of contracted relationships. Yes. If you've contracted to help, like a bodyguard, exactly. But let's go back to my lifeguard hypothetical. And let's just go one more step deeper in that hypothetical. Let's say the lifeguard has just gotten off duty because lunch is called. And so they're walking away, they're off. Are they required to help? They're now off duty, it's lunch. You're a lifeguard. Let's even create the scenario. The lifeguard is at the city pool. There's a kid running around the pool, and he keeps telling the kid, stop running, no running at the pool. And the kid's kind of being a jerk about it. And the kid is continuing to be a jerk. And now most people have left, and it's just the lifeguard and the kid. And the kid jumps off the diving board, hits his head on the diving board. But right before the kid went on the diving board, the lifeguard is going to lunch. And the lifeguard says, even shouts out, hey kid, stay out of the pool, I'm on lunch. And so he starts walking down his steps, and the kid jumps on the diving board, hits his head on the diving board, is bleeding, and now is in the pool. Does the lifeguard have to help? Isn't this an interesting question? Is that duty still there? Yes, yes, no, no, yes. Doctors are not legally obligated to help. So the answer to my hypothetical situation is probably. He's probably required to help because it was right in front of him. He saw it. Being on lunch isn't going to, and it was easy and there was no risk. Yeah, he probably does. But there's one other point I want to make on this, one other legal point, and that is the point: if you don't have a duty to help a stranger, you don't know the situation, you're under no special relationship. If you do help, if you choose to help, you have a legal obligation not to actually make the situation worse. So if you help, you better be helpful. How about that? How about that? Isn't that interesting? So you can't make the situation worse if you try to help. So that's going to wrap up our discussion of the apathetic bystander. And I think we learned a lot of law, a lot of psychology, and a lot of interesting comments. So if there's anything else anybody wants to say on this topic, then I will be all ears or eyes. I will leave it in the chat box, but I'm going to wrap up the recording of the apathetic bystander. And that is the end of this, this session. Thank you.